So, the dogs of Baldur's Gate once again hound me. Eldrith, the Betrayer. Welcome, humble adventurers, to my realm of knowledge and mystery. Here, in my cursed library, are endless tomes and scrolls on the darkest and evilest foes in all the realms. Be they from Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, the many worlds of darkness, or any realm in between. Welcome to the Dastardly decimal system. I'm your caretaker of the corrupt, the librarian, Castor Cain. And supervising, as always, is Vega, the cat. A paladin is a loyal soldier and a powerful commander. They are symbols of virtue and righteousness. They suffer so others don't have to. It makes them great heroes for those that keep on the path of good, and terrifying villains for those that fall off of it. For you today, my guest, I have brewed us a pot of soldier herb tea. It is a natural combination made from matiko leaves and hand-picked, naturally dried fruit. So take a seat, let me pour you a cup, and then we can talk about Eldrith, the Betrayer. Eldrith was once a human paladin. She wasn't a stunning beauty. She had more a face that had seen combat, and hands that had worked out every single day of her life. Now, she was a reborn, undead blackguard. Eldrith is often seen dressed in slate gray full-plate armor, and fights with a sword and shield. She has the ability to smite, and uses magical auras to strengthen her allies on the battlefield. She fights with a dancing blade that will slash and spin across the battlefield, while she summons bursts and blasts of magical lightning to damage her foes. As a leader, Eldrith is a prideful commander who has an unbeaten streak in combat. This has led her to believe that she is deserving of far more power, praise, and worth than she currently gets. This has even gone as far as to morph her thoughts into a delusion of her true power and her true rulership of Baldur's Gate. Sometimes, a person's evil actions are so impactful that it forever taints the history of that person. In the case of Eldrith, her actions have essentially erased her last name from the minds of all. She has worn many titles, but now she is known as Eldrith, the Betrayer. Eldrith grew up in Baldur's Gate and joined the City Watch at a young age. She quickly grew in strength, skill, and stature, and very swiftly rose to the rank of general. She was given command of the Company of the Crescent Blade. Eldrith was a masterful tactician who focused not only on her individual martial prowess, but also made sure her troops were trained far better than those of any other companies. This all contributed to Eldrith never losing a battle that she commanded. Eldrith's victories were well known and well documented. She led her forces to victory in the first and last seasons of the Sundering War, the Crescent Port Siege, and finally, in the defense against the Black Horde. Her undefeated streak caused her pride to rapidly grow until it consumed her, warping her sense of thought and perception. She began to view all of Baldur's Gate as her domain. It was a city under her rulership. She never attempted a coup, of course, believing herself a benevolent ruler who allowed the Grand Dukes to exist as figureheads. She knew that they would never go to war without consulting their greatest general, and they would always do as they were told, and take their side in battle. And in truth, it worked like that, until the day they dared to disobey her. In 1235 DR, hundreds of orc armies and orc clans came together in the Sword Coast, forming the largest orc horde in the history of Faerun. This army, the Black Horde, began to assault numerous settlements in the north before moving south to threaten the kingdoms there. They laid siege to Waterdeep, killed the Pasha of Columnport, claimed the city of Silvery Moon before placing its gaze upon Baldur's Gate. Fearing for the city's safety, the Lord's Alliance turned to Eldrith and her company. The Company of the Crescent Blade rode out and assaulted the Horde. Legions upon legions of orcs faced them, each heavily armed, filled with bloodlust, and experienced in battle. They outnumbered the company 5-1, but Eldrith cared not. She had never lost before, and wasn't intending to start that day. She was victorious, but at a great, great cost. She split the horde and scattered the orcs, but lost nearly half of her own company in the process. Eldrith's pride would not take this. She was desperate to pursue the orcs, twisting her own logic into believing that if even one orc of the Black Horde remained, then they would return and attack again. The only way to ensure Baldur's Gate's safety was to slaughter them all and make sure they never came back. But the Grand Duke said no. Her company was lessened in numbers. Her soldiers were weary, and the people of the city wanted no more death. Eldrith was furious. How dare they deny her? This was her city. She was only trying to protect it. Disobeying commands, she took her company and rode out after the orcs. They tracked the beasts and cornered the orcs in a narrow defile, cutting off their retreat, and began to attack. They thought this an easy win, but the orcs, like trapped animals, fought more ferociously than ever before. They overwhelmed Eldrith's outnumbered and tired warriors. She sent word to Baldur's Gate demanding reinforcements, but the dukes simply refused. Eldrith's forces were slaughtered, and she was forced to retreat, being given her first loss ever. Eldrith returned to the city, but was stopped at the gate and denied entrance for her and her troops. She was told, for her disobedience, that she and her troops were banished from the city. Eldrith was beyond furious. How could she be banished from Baldur's Gate? From her city? Suddenly, the truth, or her version of it, became clear to the paladin. The Grand Dukes were corrupt. They were the villainous cancer at the heart of Baldur's Gate, and it was her job as a paladin to cut them out, to liberate the city. to save everyone. Taking what few troops she had left, she led them in an attack on Baldur's Gate, fueling her fanatically loyal troops with stories of liberation and tales of righteous duty. They fought against the city, but were slaughtered even further. Eldrith signaled a retreat and escaped into the marsh, her second loss in a row. She was labeled the traitoress of swords and villainized across the city. Every citizen feared her return, her next attack, and demanded that the Grand Dukes put an end to her threat. In a case of vicious irony, the Grand Dukes believed that even if a single member of Eldrith's company existed, then they would return to attack again. The only way to ensure the safety of Baldur's Gate was to slaughter them all. They pursued the company into the marsh, slaughtering each and every member until only Eldrith remained. They knew of her skills in combat and dared not face her. Instead, they cowardly executed her with a volley of crossbow bolts. This marked the end of Eldrith. Or at least, it should have. Be it by rage, pride, or the machinations of something sinister. But somehow, Eldrith survived. She defied death by sheer force of will alone, and somehow, she reached into the wells of magic to sustain her, and slowly began the creation of the Onyx Tower. The Onyx Tower was a powerful, evil building located in the marsh of Trelimber, in the western heartlands. The tower was said to drink in light, a building not even the moonlight would touch. It was a black kiss or a serpent's bite upon the land. While existing on the material plane, it had links to the elemental planes, created out of the elemental foundations. The tower had no entrance and could only be accessed by a magical gate. The tower was controlled by the Onyx Heart, located in the Plains of Shadows. Now in control of the tower, and no longer bound by age, Eldrith began the slow and methodical planning to get her revenge on Baldur's Gate. She began by getting together some allies. One of the earliest to swear loyalty was Mordok Solanmare, the king of vampires. With his charismatic help, she spent the next century building her power, collecting arcane artifacts, and forming alliances with drow, lizardmen, and the thieves of Xantem's guild. This would become her deadly alliance. At some point, over the 150-ish years, between her death and her attack, her mind became warped even further. Gone were any notions of liberation and savior. Gone were any notions of cutting free the cancer that ruled Baldur's Gate. Now, she just wanted blind, furious revenge, and she wanted to wipe Baldur's Gate off of the map for good. Eldrith began her attacks using the Orb of the Undead to raise the dead from their crypts and sewers located beneath the city. Then she began to assault the city with monsters. This was only a misdirection, as her plan was to open a portal within Baldur's Gate and invade directly from within. Soon Baldur's Gate would fear the return of Eldrith, the betrayer. In the world of Faerun, the butterfly effect is a very real thing. Too often, small events begin a chain that lead to greater ones. When Xantam thieves robbed a trio of adventurers, they didn't expect that this would set those heroes on a path to stopping Eldrith. The heroes started with the Thieves Guild, then moved to the undead in the sewers, before facing off against the Drow, an Ice Dragon, and even the Lizard Man armies. Once they found an entrance into the Onyx Tower, they fought upwards until facing off against Eldrith herself. The battle was fierce. Eldrith's skills were unmatched during the Black Horde, but now, 139 years later, they were beyond approach. Even the most skilled of warriors was barely able to keep their eye on her blade to track its movements. And those daring enough to raise a shield to block it found their arm instantly numb. Yet be it by luck or the divine blessing of some deity, but this trio somehow bested the warrior. As the former general lay on the stone floor, bleeding out and dying, a moment of clarity struck her. In that moment, without pride or anger clouding her mind, Eldrith was filled with a moment of remorse, repenting her actions in her final breath. Seconds later, the Onyx Tower crumbled. In a storm of fire and lightning, Eldrith died her second death. Eldrith will forever be known not for her service to Baldur's Gate, but instead for her betrayal of it. She wanted nothing more than to destroy the city, but it was a desire that led to her eventual death. Twice. While the darkness of pride that consumed her cannot be overlooked, but if we dig deeper, we must ask ourselves, what is the lesson to be learned from her actions? Is Eldrith a reminder that regardless of how much success and renown you have gained as a soldier, that we must never forget that a soldier's duty is always to serve the people? Or is she a lesson and a reminder that pride has no place on the battlefield? Regardless, as Eldrith's story comes to an end, the tale of the Onyx Tower still has more chilling stories to be told. Join me again in my library for more stories and lore about the darkest villains from the darkest realms. This has been the Dastardly Decimal System, and once again, I am your librarian, Castor Cain, and with me as always is Vega the cat. Do you love the Dastardly Decimal System and want to support us? Check out our new Patreon. Members will get access to show notes, official artwork, our new bonus episode series called Cleaning Up After Tea Time, and of course, plenty of cat pics of Vega voice actors Vash and Zid. You'll even be able to suggest a topic for a future episode. Check it out at patreon.com/dastardly-system. If you are not financially able and still want to support us, suggest the show to a D&D loving friend. It really helps us get noticed. The Dastardly Decimal System can be found on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and BlueSky at DD System Podcast. That's Delta Delta System Podcast. Drop us a message and say hi. Vega always loves the attention. This podcast was produced by Midnight Reading Audio, a division of Midnight Reading Publishing. The voice of Castor Cain is Larry Gent. The voice of Vega is provided by my cats, Vash and Zid. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.